You can find German speakers on every continent. There are over 95 million people around the world that speak German as their primary language. And altogether, there are 130 million people that speak German as a first or second language. That sure is a lot of people. Now, of course, 78% of the world's German speakers live in Germany. But where are all the rest of them? It might interest you to know that German spreads its roots far beyond its homeland. In this video, you'll learn all about the German language across the world and how it ended up in each of these countries. A few of them might surprise you. First, let's talk about the countries where German is the official language. There are 6 countries in Europe where German is the official language, or one of the official languages. Picture a map, and at its heart lies Germany, home to a staggering 78% of the world's German-speaking population. Next is the enchanting land of Austria. Here, nestled in the picturesque Alpine valleys, you'll find over 8 million native German speakers. And as we venture into the Swiss Alps, you'll find another 5.5 million native German speakers. We cross over to Belgium. Here, the country has 3 official languages, and German is one of them. In Belgium, there are 82,000 native German speakers. As we wander further, we stumble across the Principality of Liechtenstein. Here, we have 37,000 native German speakers. The final country on the list that has German as a native language is Luxembourg. This land is full of rolling hills and fairy tale castles. In this charming country, you'll find 15,000 native German speakers. But we don't just have German language speakers, where German is the official language. You can also find lots of German-speaking communities in other parts of Europe. For example, in the Czech Republic, there are about 53,000 native German speakers. Back in the day, the Czech Republic had a sizable German-speaking crowd. They were often referred to as Bohemian Germans. This was back in the Middle Ages in a place called Sudetenland. Since the Middle Ages, things have changed a lot, and now the German speakers are a minority. Let's look at the German speakers in Denmark. There are over 30,000 native German speakers living there. A unique regional dialect flourishes in the Nord-Schleswig region. It's a small but significant number of people that celebrate their German heritage here. In fact, the German minority of South Jutland is the only officially recognized national minority in Denmark. You can also find native German speakers in Hungary. You'll find about 68,000 native German speakers. German Hungarians are often known as the Danube Swabians. They form a vibrant German-speaking community nestled within Hungary. They speak with a unique Swabian dialect, and some people call it Schwulve. Schwulve? The Danube Swabians lived in the Kingdom of Hungary, stretching their roots into places like the Kingdom of Croatia, Slovenia, and Vojvodina. Other German ethnic groups have also hung out in these parts since the Middle Ages, in Budapest, but also in the areas around it. Next, we have the south of Tyrol, in Italy. In the South Tyrol region, there are almost 300,000 native German speakers. Many of them reside in the provinces of Bolzano, Bozen, and Trento. About 3/4 of the population in South Tyrol speak German, and only 1/4 speak Italian. Let's look at the Germans in Poland. There are almost 500,000 native German speakers. The German language is spoken in certain regions of Poland. German speakers first came to these regions during the Middle Ages, but you can still find a lot of people in Poland that still speak German. Romania is another country with a lot of German speakers. You can find between 35,000 and 76,000 native German speakers. The exact numbers aren't very available, but there are many different groups of Germans in Romania, the largest of which have historically been known as the Transylvanian Saxons. And there are also about 15,000 Romanians that speak German as a second language. We can also find a large number of Germans in Russia, about 2 million according to the latest numbers. Since the 18th century, many Germans settled in Russia due to invitations from various Tsars. Baltic Germans were Germans that lived on the eastern side of the Baltic Sea. During the 12th century, many Germans migrated to Eastern Europe. Today, we know those countries as Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. In total, there's about 1,000 or 2,000 Baltic Germans still using German as their mother tongue. Let's look at Germans on the continent of Africa. In Namibia, there are still about 22,000 native German speakers. You can also find Germans in former colony areas of Cameroon and Kenya. And several tens of thousands of Namibians speak German as a second language. Introduction of the German language to Africa goes all the way back to times of German colonial rule. German functioned as the official language from 1884 to 1915. German was added again as a semi-official language in 1984, and since 1990, English became the only official language in the country. Next, let's look at South Africa. Here, there's about 12,000 German speakers. A significant portion of South Africans are German descendants. Most of them originated from the Cape Colony. Others were absorbed into the population because they had religious or ethnic similarities to the Dutch and French. Many of them originated from different immigration waves during the 19th and 20th centuries. Let's look at the German language in the Americas. Argentina has 500,000 native German speakers. About 1% of the population in Argentina speaks German, and about 3 million claim German ancestry. But how did all those Germans get over to Argentina? In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a massive wave of immigration transformed the landscape of Argentina. Alongside other immigrants to Buenos Aires, German speakers strove to carve out a place for themselves as Argentinians without fully relinquishing their German language or culture. After the end of the Second World War, Argentina became a refuge for the Nazi leaders that were abolished. They set up camp in Argentina, and in the country of Belize, we can find another 13,000 German speakers. Mennonites leaving Europe were looking for a place to practice their religion, and they settled in Belize. The Mennonites speak an archaic version of German known as Plattdeutsch. They use it in everyday life, and a minority, 10%, speak Pennsylvanian German. This next one might come as a surprise, but in Brazil, you'll find over 1 million German speakers. In fact, Brazil was a predominantly German-speaking country at the beginning of the 20th century. After the Second World War, the Portuguese took over, and the Portuguese language pushed the German language to the side. And slowly but surely, the use of the German language declined. Next is Chile. Chile has about 40,000 native German speakers. From 1850 to 1875, about 30,000 German immigrants settled in the region of southern Chile. It was part of a state-led colonization effort. Some of the immigrants had left Europe in the aftermath of the German Revolution in 1848. They brought skills and assets. They were artisans, farmers, merchants, and they contributed to the country's economic and industrial development. In Costa Rica, there's a German-speaking population of about 8,000 people. It's one of the largest German-speaking communities in Central America. There's about 2,000 Germans residing in Costa Rica. A popular German Bildungsurlaub, or training vacation, is a program where German employees can get extra vacation days. And they can use these vacation days to complete advanced professional training, like learning Spanish. During the Bildungsurlaub vacation, Germans get paid their regular salary. They only have to pay for the language classes. Next is Mexico. There's over 200,000 German speakers. Mexico has the fourth largest German-speaking population in Latin America, behind Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. German as a foreign language is also popular, just behind French as the second most commonly studied foreign language. Next is Paraguay. Another large group of Germanic people who immigrated to Paraguay are Plattdeutsch-speaking Russian Mennonites. About 26,000 Germans live there in Paraguay. During the Industrial Age, the Nueva Germania, or New Germany, was a colony founded in 1888. The colony was regarded as a failure, but the Germans are still living there today. In the U.S., you'll find another 2 million native German speakers. The German presence in the U.S. goes back to 1683 or even later. A small group of German-speaking Mennonites and Quakers founded the settlement in Germantown. Today, it's part of the city of Philadelphia. Looking north, we have another almost 500,000 German speakers in Canada. German immigrants and their descendants played an important role in the development of Canada. According to the latest census, there were about 3 million people in Canada with German descent, and another 430,000 people reported German as their mother tongue. And did you know that every year in Kitchener-Waterloo, you can go to an Oktoberfest, just like in Germany? In Australia, we can find another population of German speakers. There's about 75,000 German speakers in Australia. Australians of German ancestry constitute the fourth largest ethnic group in Australia. In the past, German immigrants played an important part of settling Queensland and South Australia. Here, Barossa German was most common, spoken in the Barossa Valley region of Australia. In 1952, Germans were included in Australia's post-war assisted immigration scheme. Over the next 20 years, 150,000 German immigrants arrived from the Republic of Germany, and another 30,000 Austrian and Swiss Germans arrived as well. We can also find German speakers in Asia. In Kazakhstan, there's over 600,000 German speakers. Who would have thought? Germans came en masse to Kazakhstan and Siberia in the fall of 1941 as a result of the decree by Joseph Stalin. They abolished the autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic of the Volga Germans. And by the end of 1941, it was estimated that 850,000 Russian Germans had been exiled to Siberia and Kazakhstan. In Singapore, you can find 9,000 German speakers. Singapore has many German-based companies that employ native German speakers, and they often live there with their families. You can also find German researchers, scientists, and academic professors working there too. Even in Japan, you can find over 5,000 German speakers. The cultural agreement signed in 1957 makes Japan a rich cultural hotspot for Germans. It created 58 Japanese-German societies in Japan, about 50 German-Japanese societies in Germany, about 800 bilateral higher education partnerships, and 50 town twinning agreements. So there are many Germans working and doing business in Japan. These are just some of the countries where German is spoken, but you can find German communities all over the place. In Spain, you can find 120,000 German speakers. Many are German nationals who moved to Spain. You can also find another 45,000 Germans in Greece. Many are retirees that are attracted to the relaxing way of life. In China, you can find about 14,000 Germans. In Portugal, 14,000. In France, you'll find another 100,000 German speakers. And last but not least, you'll also find Germans in the Antarctic. Germany has a long tradition of Antarctic research. And did you know that Germany was a leading organizer in the first International Polar Year in 1882? Germany has been part of the Antarctic Treaty consultative meetings for decades. They're responsible for preserving Antarctica as a continent. So if you have any more doubts about whether you want to learn German or another language, here's just another reason to learn German. You'll meet Germans all over the world, so start learning the German language today. Check out one of these fun videos next. We'll see you soon, German learners. Bis bald. Auf Wiedersehen.